Hello and welcome to the CDO C-Suite interview series. This is under the auspices of the CDO magazine. And my name's Derek Strauss with Gavroche. We're partnering with the CDO magazine and the MIT CDO IQ Symposium and the International Society for Chief Data Officers in a series of C-Suite interviews. A growing number of organizations have been attempting to create a data culture, a data-driven culture, but very few seem to have been successful in achieving this. Fewer still, in fact, have been able to deliver ongoing value from any of the initiatives that they began under the auspices of an initiative around data and analytics. So we wanted to ask the question, what is the perspective of forward-thinking members of the C-suite regarding the formula for success? How do we achieve this type of success? And so we've started a series where we are asking prominent executives to weigh in on this topic. And today we're going to be speaking to Marv Adams. Marv has held various senior executive roles in a number of different prominent companies. Companies like, for example, Bank One, which ultimately became part of Chase, JP Morgan Chase, Ford Motor Company, Citigroup, Fidelity, TIAA, and TD Ameritrade. When I first met Marv in 1997, he struck me as an executive who understood the value of data and analytics in the business, as well as someone who had realistic expectations as to what it would take to realize the benefits of investing in a journey to become a data-driven organization. So, Marv, welcome.
Thank you.
Based on your experience, Marv, can you describe scenarios where transformation programs of any type, not necessarily just data and analytics transformation, but any type of transformation that have been successful in changing the culture, and the culture being essentially the way we do things around here? What were the C-suite's roles in making that scenario successful? And what role, if any, did data and analytics play?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm glad you highlighted that transformations really have a lot of similarities, both root causes of success as well as root causes of failure. And it sort of doesn't matter whether it's a transformation around, let's say, quality and continuous improvement, or a transformation to go from, let's say, brick and mortar to all electronic, or whether it's a transformation around being more data-driven and analytics and a learning organization using machine learning and the kind of tools that we all know you can layer on top of good data and analytics in order to just continuously get smarter. So when I reflect back on what's been just a super enjoyable career, I can see a clear pattern on what's caused failure in transformations and what's caused success. And I boiled it down to, like 4 things. Number one is you have to have the transformation rooted in a clear purpose. Why are we doing this? If I'm going to go on a diet and lose weight and change my eating habits forever, usually there's a driving purpose. I've decided that I've either been scared by some health event and I want to make a change, or I'm inspired by somebody who I want to be like and live to be 100 years old and be healthy all the way through like they are. But there's a why behind doing what you're doing, because that becomes a big part of people buying into the whole transformation and making it sustainable over time. The second thing that has to be rooted in, and I can't be more, I can't have more conviction around a point than this next one, and that is it has to be rooted in a certainty of the outcome. Meaning, I know if I follow this diet pattern that I was talking about, or better eating pattern, that I am going to get healthier. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to be in better condition. You know, my blood counts are going to be better. If I marry that with an exercise program, I know I'm going to have better heart health, et cetera. That certainty is really important for an organization, because there's always fence sitters who want to wait and get that proof that this is really a successful program, and they want to wait until it's proven before they jump on board. And I think when leadership has certainty about the outcome, it really speeds up the alignment of the organization to that outcome. I think the third thing it has to be rooted in is CEO and C-suite actions that align with what's being espoused. So here's why we're doing it. We believe in it. Here's why we're confident that this is going to get us to where we need to get to. And here's our actions. We're going to change our operating reviews. And here's the format. And in this case, you know, we're going to expect data in these areas, and we're going to expect this type of analytics to be performed. And if you come into a review and don't have that, well, then you're going to be asked to go back and prepare it in a way that shows that your organization is making its decisions in a way that's rooted in data and analytics. And every function has to play. So many times, you know, the operations or the technology group or the marketing group is asked to make changes, while the fence sitters, maybe it's audit or compliance, so they'll sit and do the things the same way they've always done them. I think it's important that every single function aligns to the transformed way of doing things, and in their own way builds their own routines that demonstrate that they're making decisions, in this case, around data and analytics. So that alignment of the whole senior team is important in terms of the actions that play out relative to the commitment to the transformation. I think the fourth thing is it has to be rooted in competency. So you have to identify where new skills are required and not be afraid to make changes in responsibilities, whether it's leadership responsibilities or whether it's just key disciplines that, you know, are important to have in the organization and in critical roles. You know, there's been, in the quality movement, there's been green belts and black belts and people that are experts in various methodologies that support the organization and what they're trying to achieve. And the same thing is true certainly in data and analytics. So successful transformations have had those four elements. And when those four or any of those four are missing, usually the transformation stumbles.
Yeah. Interesting thoughts there. You know, that second one strikes me quite a lot as well, in terms of, you know, that you must be able to go into this with a certainty, and, you know, the outcome is actually going to happen. And that's always an interesting one, because a lot of people are skeptical, and I suppose we could have a lot of more conversation around that one, because there's, you know, are you the leader in the sector in going into that area, or and you're living on the bleeding edge, so there's no other examples of people that have really done a great job in that, which makes it the risk of failure just that much higher, you know? Or are you going to be embarking on a path well trodden already, you know, that other people have proven, you know, really works? And of course, with data and analytics, it's one of those things that, you know, it's been around a while now, that organizations have been trying to move using data and analytics as a leading, you know, capability in the organization. But, you know, it's had so many situations where people have either achieved success or achieved, you know, spectacular failure. So I don't know. Right now, it seems, though, that we're on the cusp, the brink of data and analytics really becoming an essential to companies, their ability to achieve sustained benefits, and versus just having a few, you know, intriguing point solutions that people have achieved in the past. Do you agree with that perspective? And what do you think it'll take for data and analytics to deliver and to be foundational to, ongoing sustained success in the future in terms of, the organization's overall success?
Yeah, when I look back at business history, if I look in the recent past, you don't have to look any further than companies like Amazon to see companies that have completely blown away their industry. I mean, they've transformed an entire industry and blown away in terms of their performance and consistency over time, their competition. And that organization has been rooted in data and analytics and continuous insights and continuous learning since the very early days that it was formed. And of course, with their success, their data has grown into a massive, massive asset. And so, in their case, the good outcomes just keep getting better and better and better. It's like a snowball gaining, mass as it rolls downhill. With success, they get more data, and with more data, they have more success. And but when I go into more distant history, several years ago, I really became enamored with the guy that really was the one that grew McKinsey and Company into who they are today. His name was Marvin Bower. And I don't know if it was the late 50s or the early 60s, but he wrote a couple of books that, have long since been out of print, but you can find them at used bookstores. And one is called The Will to Lead, and the other one is called The Will to Manage. Mm-hmm. And he talks about how to go in and make assessments of companies. And, back then, a McKinsey team would go in and do a comprehensive analysis that was all data driven. And the companies that they helped turn around back in their very early days, using that approach that their handful of senior consultants were trained on, really were attributed for turning around the performance of companies across different industries. So even back in the early 60s, before computers and lots of data and all that sort of stuff, there was still data to be gathered. You just had to have more rigor and more discipline in how you gathered that data and how you did the analysis, which is more manual. But I don't think we're on the brink of proving that data and analytics is the right way to run a company and have sustainable success over the time. I do believe that we're on the brink of the methods and tools around accessing data and big data and doing analysis on that data and being able to do it with more and more people of the organization that have, you can think of it as the democratization of those tools. And I think, with tools and capabilities like machine learning coming into play that allows you to then take wherever you're at and continue to learn from it and gain new insights. It's like marrying the best of the continuous improvement world with the best of the data and analytics world with those kind of tools. I do think we're on the brink of those capabilities being the price or the entry criteria for being in business. I don't think businesses of any scale will be able to compete in their industries over time without those capabilities. I mean, we can't imagine companies without a finance organization today. Right. I think there will be a time where we can't imagine an organization that doesn't run itself using quality data and analytics and continuous learning methods. I think it's that foundational.
Mm. Yeah, and I think most organizations, as you say, are getting to the point where they realize that. And there's been a lot of discussion about the value of data and can it be ultimately even something that is an asset on the books of the organization. There's a lot of really interesting strands of research that are going on as well around that type of thing. But I guess in a nutshell, from the C-suite's perspective, if you were talking to another C-suite person and they had this question in their mind, why should they initiate an enterprise data and analytics program? And how would they measure the success of such a program?
Yeah, I don't mean to give a disrespectful answer or smart alecky answer to this, but I'm going to answer it the way I'm thinking about it. If somebody that I knew well asked me that question, I would tell them, based on their question, don't do it. Because number one is it can't be thought of as a program. A program, almost by definition, has a short duration to it, has a beginning and, get it up and rolling, and then it's done and we can move on to the next program. Data and analytics and the capabilities that go with it, as we talked earlier, are becoming foundational. And I would have a conversation with that leader and really talk them through why this matters so much and how, if they want to set the organization on a foundation for success, not only during their tenure, but well beyond them, and leave a legacy, that this is not a program, it's foundational. I would tell them to not think about measuring things on short-term outcomes. I would tell them to, in the early days, measure the commitment to the new discipline and the new way of doing things. Measure that commitment. Measure the all-in nature of the organization using these methods. And where you find gaps, focus your energy on closing those gaps. But don't let people become fence sitters into believing that somehow the moment you start doing this, you're going to have successful outcomes immediately. You've got to learn your way into this discipline. I go back to something as simple as that, eating better for health purposes. If I decide at my age to start eating better for health purposes, I'm probably going to get lots of benefits over time. So probably as I get into my late 60s and my 70s and my 80s, I will be a healthier person. But if I haven't been doing it for the last 25 years and I start today, there's some chance that I'll have a health issue because of past decisions and because of the lack of that discipline in my past. And if you have short-term measures that give up the moment you see a failure like I'm describing, you miss out on the massive benefits that exist. I just think that, whenever you hear somebody talk about the need for quick wins, it's almost a red flag. It's a red flag that they haven't gotten to that state of certainty about why it matters, and that they're looking for, easy ways to convince the organization that it matters, as opposed to, coming in and saying, this is the way this business is going to run. We have to have these disciplines to compete effectively and to improve over time. And then get on with measuring the organization's commitment to implementing.
Marv, one of the interesting things about what you've been saying there is that, the long-term effect of these kinds of programs is really where people should focus their attention. And again, perhaps not to use program, but more really building it in as a foundational piece of the organization, how it does business, how it lives, how it breathes. It becomes something that is transcending a program or an initiative, and therefore is really culture focused. As we started off this discussion, it's very much about changing the way we do things and how we live. And I love the way that you've likened it to, an individual deciding that they want to live a healthier lifestyle, because I can decide now in December of 2020 that I want to be, looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger did in his heyday by the time summer comes around. But, if I've lived a life of, relative ignorance when it comes to looking after my health up until now, it's not going to happen. If I'm almost in shape like that, there's a bigger chance. But then there's also the maintaining that discipline, ongoing, to really reap those kinds of benefits. So I think it's a great way of actually explaining it to people. And I'm gonna remember that one. Thank you.
There's another really important point that I just want to emphasize. Having certainty around the discipline is critical, but having uncertainty or healthy question marks and then the formation of hypothesis and test and learn, improve within certain aspects of what you're doing, I think is also important. So I might have, or I should have, certainty around data and analytics as a healthy way to run a business. But now I'm in the marketing department and I have some data on interacting with clients, and I have a hypothesis that there is something about their behavior that's in the data that will tell me when they are leaning towards leaving versus when they are really committed as a loyal and even excited customer of my organization. I can go into the data now with a hypothesis. I don't have certainty about the answer to that. What I have certainty about is that in that data is buried some insight, and my job now is to find that. And that's where the fun of the analytics approach comes in. You develop a hypothesis, you test it, you try some things out, and you iterate, and eventually you hone in on, I can see that if this happens and that happens, the propensity to leave jumps up by about 75%. I better pay attention to those events. That's a really important distinction. Certainty around the discipline, healthy hypothesis generation, and uncertainty around any one of the insights that you're using the discipline to try to discover.
Yeah, it is fascinating, and I appreciate what you're saying about the excitement and the enjoyment of actually exploring this, the data of the organization and using analytics to become smarter as an organization. And I think that's really one of the keys that, from my perspective, having had the privilege of working with you over the years, that the C-suite gets hopefully infected with that enthusiasm and that sort of sense of exploration. And I think that really leads to ongoing success, and it kind of locks into the culture that way as well. So I really appreciate that insight. So thanks for providing some of those thoughts for us. I know. Personally, I feel like we could go on for hours talking about this subject. I've really appreciated working with you over the last, 23 years now. And I've learned a lot, I want to tell you. So thank you again for joining us today and sharing some of your insights. And to our viewers, please continue to visit the cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews. And to Marv, thank you again. And from Marv and I to our viewers, we're signing out. Thanks very much for listening.